Hey, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for giving this story your time. If you feel like supporting the channel by subscribing, it would mean a great deal to me. Now let's get into it. I'm Lawrence, and this is where everything began to change. When the woman I planned to marry told me she wanted to spend one final night with her ex, it broke something in me. It was the kind of blow you don't see coming, something that rewrites what you thought love was. After all we'd built together, I couldn't wrap my head around her request. Still, I didn't lash out. I didn't try to shame her or persuade her otherwise. I simply told her, if that's what you feel you need, I won't stop you. I stepped aside. I gave her that freedom, not realizing that moment would quietly mark the beginning of the end. From then on, I changed, quietly and permanently. It was around this time that I met Diane. We were both part of a local book club. Even among a crowd of thoughtful, well-read people, she stood out, but not in the loud, attention-grabbing way. She carried herself with restraint, always courteous but distant. She didn't go out of her way to chat or connect. Most attempts to engage her ended in brief, neutral replies. But I noticed her. There was a calm intensity about her that made me wonder what she wasn't saying. Our first real exchange happened after one of our meetings, during a casual group conversation about the novel we'd just finished. Diane said something that stuck with me, and I used it as an excuse to speak with her one-on-one. Her reply was minimal, a small nod, a quiet thank you. But I didn't walk away. I kept trying. At each meeting, I made an effort to connect. Eventually, I asked for her number. She paused before answering, studying me for a few seconds. Then she passed her phone over. In the beginning, our messages were surface level. Just the usual small talk. How's your week? Reading anything interesting? But gradually, the tone shifted. The conversations got longer, more open. She started sharing unprompted. That's when I sensed something was forming, something real. One night, during a quiet back and forth over text, she let her guard down. She talked about her previous relationship, how toxic it had been, how emotionally draining, how it had stripped her of confidence. She wasn't fishing for sympathy, and she wasn't seeking validation. She just wanted to be transparent. She told me she had no more patience for shallow connections. If something didn't feel genuine, she wouldn't entertain it. She was done playing roles. I respected that. I told her I wasn't into pretense either. I made it clear, we can take this at your pace. No pressure. Her response was simple, thank you. That moment shaped everything that followed. Over time, we grew close. Diane started to seem lighter, more present, more joyful. I assumed it meant she was healing. Her ex stopped coming up in conversations, and I saw that as a sign of progress. I felt secure, grounded. With that comfort, I decided to take a step forward. One quiet evening, while we were sharing takeout on my couch, I turned to her and asked, "Do you want to be my girlfriend?" She looked surprised. Then she smiled and said yes. That smile felt like the sun rising after a long, uncertain night. From then on, we were nearly inseparable. I made time, even in my busiest weeks, because I wanted to. I introduced her to the places that mattered to me. When she reached milestones, I celebrated them in ways that were tailored to her tastes. I listened to her preferences, her silences, her stories, and I used that knowledge to show her love in ways she would feel. To her credit, she gave as much as she received. Diane had her own ways of showing affection, and they always matched the energy I brought. Our relationship was balanced, built on mutual attention and effort. A year went by. Our lives began to blend together in all the small, meaningful ways. I trusted her completely, and with that trust came peace. I believed we had built something safe, something lasting. Then one day, I decided to surprise her. It was just an ordinary weekday, and I left work early to swing by her apartment. She'd always said she loved surprise visits. It made her feel loved. I expected a warm welcome. But when I walked in, something felt wrong. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, staring blankly out the window. Her eyes were swollen, her cheeks streaked with dried tears. Whatever had happened, it had hit her hard. I asked her what was going on. She tried to dismiss it at first, said she was fine, but I knew better. I sat beside her, met her gaze, and gently asked her to talk to me. Eventually she did. She had just found out that her ex was seeing someone new, someone within her own social circle. And not only that, but he was suddenly doing all the things he once refused to do with her. Weekend getaways, art exhibits, sweet intentional gestures. Back when they were together, he'd scoff at those things, called them cheesy. Now he was doing them effortlessly with someone else. She felt betrayed, replaced. It was like watching someone become the person you needed, just not for you. I sat there quietly listening, unsure how to feel. The woman I loved was grieving a man who had once made her feel small. My mind was spinning. I wanted to ask, why does he still have this power over you? But I didn't say that. Instead, I reached for her hand and reminded her of what we were creating together. I told her that the past only weighs us down if we let it, that the life we had now was what mattered. She nodded and said she was grateful, that she wasn't about to ruin something healthy by clinging to something broken. Things seemed normal after that. We laughed again. We carried on. But a quiet uncertainty had taken root. I tried to ignore it. I told myself not to read too much into it. But the question stayed with me. Was she truly over him? 3 years in, I knew I wanted to marry her. I waited until I was sure, then proposed with every ounce of sincerity I had. She said yes through tears, and for a while it felt like everything was aligning. We didn't want a flashy wedding, just something meaningful. Diane threw herself into the details. She wanted every part of it to reflect us, and I admired her for it. But as the date approached, something shifted. She seemed distracted. Even when we were together, her focus wandered. I asked her about it once. She said it was just wedding stress, that it was all a bit much to handle. I believed her. Pre-wedding nerves are normal, right? I chose trust. We'd been through so much. Why second-guess it now? A few weeks before the ceremony, she spent the weekend at my place. Like always. We went out to her favorite Thai spot and came back full, happy, laughing. Later that night, as we were tidying up, her phone buzzed on the bed. The screen lit up. One name, just one. Jay, her ex. I didn't see the full message, only the sender's name. But that alone made my stomach drop. I turned to her and asked, "Why is Jay messaging you?" Without missing a beat, she said, "We're just friends now," like it was nothing. I didn't push. I didn't want to ruin the night. But something inside me cracked open. A wound I thought had healed started bleeding again. 2 weeks later, with the wedding just days away, I got word that my time-off request had been approved. I was ready to start this new chapter with complete presence. But I couldn't shake the unease. A whisper in my mind kept echoing the same question. Was she still standing at a crossroads I thought we'd already left behind? That evening, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had to talk to Diane. So I drove over to her place without thinking twice. We chatted for a while, picked at some leftover food, and eventually found ourselves lying next to each other in bed. It was one of those quiet nights where neither of you speaks, both just staring up at the ceiling, completely absorbed in your own thoughts. Then she turned toward me. "There's something I need to ask," she said. "It's going to sound crazy. But before I tell you, I need you to promise 2 things. You won't say no, and you won't get mad." Right then, I felt something tighten in my gut. Nothing good ever follows a line like that. I didn't give her the response she wanted. There were no promises, no comfort. Just a simple, "Tell me. If it's something I can handle, I will." She paused, clearly struggling, as if still weighing whether or not to speak the words. But eventually she did. She said she needed one last night with her ex. Explained she couldn't enter marriage while still holding on to unresolved feelings, that she needed to put the past to rest. She wasn't asking to sneak around, she wanted my approval. My thoughts shattered like glass hitting concrete. I couldn't even form a proper sentence. I just stared at her. Because when someone hasn't fully let go of what came before, it always finds a way to show itself. And it had, right there. In that moment, I understood. Whether I gave her permission or not didn't really matter. She could still go behind my back, claim it was all for closure, and I'd be none the wiser. I'd end up standing at the altar completely unaware. So I swallowed everything I felt and said, barely above a whisper, "If that's what you need, go ahead." She hadn't expected me to agree. I think part of her was counting on me to lose it, to beg her not to go, to fight for her. Maybe she needed resistance to ease her own uncertainty, but I didn't give her any of that. She reached out for a hug, but I couldn't bring myself to return it. I turned away. I lay there all night, unable to sleep, listening to the slow, even sound of her breathing beside me. The woman I had planned to marry had just asked me to willingly let her go back to someone else, even if only for a night. And no matter how she tried to spin it, one truth remained. If she still needed to see him, she had no business building a life with me. By the time morning came, my mind was already made up. It was over. I left before she woke. No goodbye note, no message. Not like I usually did. The thought of her spending the day with another man and returning to me like nothing had happened, I couldn't stomach it. The drive home was dead quiet. And as the hours passed, something deeper settled in. I knew I couldn't stay in that town. Every street, every corner reminded me of her. So I packed the bare necessities into my trunk and decided to leave. No farewells, not to family, not to friends. Somewhere halfway out of town, I called my cousin. He lives in a small, quiet town a few hours away. Told him I needed space, that it had been too long since we last saw each other. He didn't ask for details. Just said, "You're welcome here." I drove through the night, the kind of drive that blurs together, where even music becomes background noise to your own thoughts. When I finally arrived, he greeted me with a hug and a tired but warm smile. I tried to reciprocate, but I was completely hollow. After a quick shower and something to eat, I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls from Diane. That silence told me everything. In my mind, I pictured her going straight from my place to Jay's, spending the entire day there. That night, lying on the guest bed, I was running on empty. Mentally, emotionally, physically. Sleep only came because my body finally gave out. When I woke the next day, I saw over a dozen missed calls and a flood of messages, all from her. For a split second, my heart jumped. Then I read what she'd written. She said she'd gone to my place after leaving Jay's and found it empty. There it was, no doubt left. She'd actually done it. And her message didn't just wound me, it humiliated me. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I blocked her number. Then I blocked every social profile she had, pulled out the SIM card, shut the phone off, and left it that way. That was the end. No room left for her in my life. I asked my cousin not to tell anyone I was staying with him. When he asked why, I finally opened up. Told him the whole story. He listened quietly, his face registering disbelief, but he never spoke badly about her. All he said was, "Man, stay strong. You didn't deserve that." Almost a month passed before I went back to town. I didn't tell anyone I was coming home, just wanted to quietly figure out the next steps. But small towns have a way of spreading news fast. Somehow Diane found out I was back. I don't know who told her, but less than a day later she showed up at my door. At first I didn't say a word. I just stared at her, wondering what she thought she could possibly say to undo the damage. She knocked again. I opened the door but didn't let her inside. I didn't want her in my space. I looked at her and said calmly, "Go be with him. Whatever we were, it's over." She broke down on my doorstep, crying, pleading, told me she regretted everything, said the moment she stepped into Jay's place she realized it was a mistake. That nothing had changed. He still treated her the same. The closure she thought she needed, just a lie. She called me the best man she'd ever had, said losing me was the worst decision of her life. But none of it made a difference. I'd already let her go. I listened, but I didn't respond the way she wanted. There are some lines you can't uncross. Some damage can't be undone. She stood there for a while, hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. Eventually, I closed the door. But she didn't give up. In the days that followed, she called from numbers I didn't recognize. I'd pick up only to hear her voice again. She messaged me from other people's accounts, pouring her heart out, saying she still loved me, asking for another chance. But I was finished. I refused to keep reading messages that made me feel like I was Plan B. One by one, I blocked every number, every account. She was already gone from my phone. Now she was gone from my life. Here's what I've come to understand. You can't find peace in a relationship where you have to wonder if you're just someone's fallback. She made a choice. She reached for something behind her, at the cost of everything in front of her. And while forgiveness might have been possible, forgetting was not. This is where our story ends.